We go. Now, it's again the same situation. If you were not here last week, it's going to appear like I'm a little bit starting in the middle. But like I said before, you'll figure it out soon enough. You'll get it. Amid Hashem. We're doing a syllabus, a series of classes. That's a couple of years old. Every year we do a different part of it. This year we're really continuing last year's syllabus. The first syllabus was called the Aves, the patriarchs and matriarchs. The second section was called Yossi and his brothers. The third is called Exile and Redemption, or From Exile to Redemption. Essentially, we're learning Sichos at the clip of a Sicha a week, which means you don't learn everything, we just do bits and pieces. Journeying through the Chumash, beginning with Avraham Avinu. In hindsight, I regret it. I should have started with Adam Rishon. When I'm finishing the Chumash, I'm going to go back to the beginning and do Genesis. Why should I skip the first two parshas? And we're in the middle of a story. The point of the story we're at is Hashem and Moshe are in negotiation. Moshe doesn't want to go, and Hashem insists that he must. One of the most obvious arguments that Moshe presents to Hashem is, I haven't suffered. Jews have been suffering for 80 years. My brother and sister have been suffering with them. I've been living on the fat of the land. I've been a king for 40 years in Ethiopia. It said in Midrash Chal, 40 years there was a king in Ethiopia. And the only reason he left is because they insisted that he gets married and produce an offspring, and he didn't want to produce the kind of offspring they wanted. So he pushed it and ran away. That's what the Midrash says. And Hashem, after 80 years of living on the fat of the land, Hashem said, okay, go to Mitzrayim and take him out. Moshe says, me? And Hashem says, you. So Moshe says, what about my brother? Oh, your brother's going to be happy. He'll be very happy to let you lead and he'll follow. What about the fact that I didn't suffer with my brethren? Hashem says that's exactly the point. The freedom the Jewish people need to have has to come from somebody who has such a sense of freedom they never tasted the slavery. And that's what has to be you. But the negotiation goes on for a week. And Moshe gives the Eibishter a run for his money. He really does. One of the arguments that Moshe presents is a dual argument. It has two parts. And it's the theme of this Sicha. For those of you who are new, this is how this operates. You have a Sicha in front of you with underlined words. If you just read the underlined, you'll be with me. Because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to only read the words I underlined. I went through the entire Sicha, underlined certain words, certain paragraphs. I'm going to read that like a narrative. In other words, whatever's underlined doesn't exist. And if you can keep with me on that, you'll have no trouble following me. If you lose me, ask me, I'll show you what I'm holding. Because that's how we do this. We consolidate a Sicha by reading only certain lines, and I underline them for you so that you can follow with me as we read the text. Okay? So let's read it inside. Vayemen Moshe Elokim. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Elokim, he says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, number one, Mi anoichi ki eilech abani. Who am I to go to the Pharaoh? Who am I? I'm a nobody. And then there's a number two. V'chiyotzi es b'nei Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, which is translated as, who are the Jews to be redeemed? It's two separate questions, not one question. Numero uno, who am I to take them out? And numero dos, who are they to be taken out? And Rashi interprets, Maz chus yesh b'yodam. What merit do the Jewish people have currently, she'ucha lo hitziam, which will justify my taking them out of Egypt? So there's two questions in one sentence. I'm not worthy and they're not deserving. So what's this whole game? I'm not qualified and they're not deserving. I can't be the redeemer, and what's chus do they have to be redeemed? So Hashem answers in the next pasuk, next underline. Quote, it's the very next pasuk in the Chumash. When you will take this people out of Egypt, they will worship God on this mountain, meaning to say Har Sinai. And the Rebbe continues, Masha Amarta, when you said to me, what merit I'm going to take them out of Egypt? The answer is, you should know, in the merit of the Torah that they're going to get in the future. At this mountain, they are now departing. They don't deserve it. They will earn it later, after the fact, post facto. Now redeem them, tomorrow they're going to earn it. Dover Achen, I'm going to the next Rashi. Ki eheye imoch, that I'm going to be with you. V'zeh shetatzliach b'shlichuscha, the fact that you will in the future succeed in the mission, ha'ois, the sign, al haftocha acheres shani mavtichacha, on a second promise which I am promising you, which is shekeshetetzia mimitzrayim, when you take them out of Egypt, tavdun oisi, they will worship me. Top of the second column on page 7. Alaharas on this mountain, shektikablu atayda love, they're going to get the tayda upon it. The he has chus, and it is that merit, ha'emetas l'Yisrael, which stands for the Jewish people. So Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu two things. But both of the things as to Moshe Rabbeinu are future. The Jews are going to earn the merit to leave Egypt in the future. You will discover my support for you in the future. When you see how successful you'll be, you'll know. And of course the obvious question of the Rebbe is, since when is the future a merit? You're a tzaddik because tomorrow you're going to give $1 million to tzedakah. Now how are you going to give $1 million to tzedakah? Because today and tomorrow you're going to win a lottery for $1 billion. So you give $1 million to tzedakah. It hasn't happened. You have no merit at the moment. Jews are in Egypt. They have to be redeemed. Moshe says, what chus do they have? And Hashem says, tomorrow. What chus do I have? Hashem says, tomorrow. What kind of tomorrow? We're talking about today. What merit do the Jewish people have now? What worthiness do I have right now? And Rashi says that Hashem answers him, the future will justify the present. The future will be the chus for the present. Page 8. Second column. But Tzadach Bia, the question is, She'ein zeh border kol kach b'l'sheni kan, the language of Rashi isn't so precise here. V'shesha'alta, when you asked me, maschus yesh li Yisrael, what merit do the Jewish people have? Sheyeshu mi Mitzrayim, but they should go out of Egypt. So the Eibishter says, Davar gadol yesh li al Yitzhak, something great is included in this Exodus, that they're going to serve me at Har Sinai. So the Rebbe says, the chosar iker ha'adgasha, the most important part of what Hashem should say to Moshe Rabbeinu, is missing b'mayin al shailas Moshe, on Moshe Rabbeinu's question. What's his question is, maschus, what merit do they have now? And what's his answer? Tomorrow. She'ein zu schus she'esh la'machshav. This is not a merit that they already have, which justifies Hashem being so kind to them now. It's about the future. Elazuhi hatachlis v'hamechuvin v'hamatara shala yitzia. It's the purpose and the intent and the target, the point of arrival of this Exodus. So how is that an answer to a question? Moshe is saying what merit do they have right now, and Hashem is telling him later on they're going to do good things. That wasn't my question. My question is, why did they deserve it? Moreover, in the second interpretation, Rashi says that right now they have a merit. The merit that the Jewish people have now is what they're going to do tomorrow, and that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now the techno Rashi we're not worrying about. In other words, this is not, even though this is a Rashi Sicha, we're not learning a Rashi class. We're learning the Sicha as part of the story of the Exodus. Hashem says to Moshe, take the Jewish people out, and Moshe has 101 reasons. If you're a high school student and need excuses, learn Shmois. He's a master. 7 days he negotiates with the Eibishter, with story after story and explanation after explanation. It's a lesson in excuse giving from Moshe Rabbeinu. He's a great teacher. Hashem finally gets upset at Moshe. But Hashem is so patient. I spoke about this last week. Hashem is so patient with him. He really convinces him. He doesn't force him. He says, you're going to do it, and you're going to do it because you want to, not because I said. And one of his complaints is, how am I deserving? How are the Jewish people deserving? And the Abish tells him tomorrow. So the question becomes, what does tomorrow have to do with Moshe's question? Moshe's asking about today. This is the spirit of the Sicha. How is the schus that Moshe Rabbeinu has in the future, and the schus that the Jewish people have in the future, justify the kindness and the favoritism that the Eibishter is showing them now? Okay? Page 10. And then we're going straight to the answer. We're not wasting any time. And it's a wonderful answer. It's a really, really good answer. It's a wonderful answer. So here we go. Here's the answer. This is a Itur, which is one of the Rishonim, and it's really somehow based on a Gemara. Bisha'a sha'amar lahem Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom. Moshe Rabbeinu asks Hashem, what merit do I have? What merit do the Jewish people have? And the Eibush answers him, tomorrow. Moshe accepts that answer. He's happy with it. We just don't understand why. And he tells it to the Jewish people, I'm going to take you out. You're going to be taken out. You don't deserve it. You will deserve it. So the Medrash says the following. When Moshe comes to the Jewish people and tells them what Hashem told him, that in 50 days hence, or in a later period of time, the Jewish people are going to serve Hashem at this mountain. So it says in Chazal, Omru le Yisrael. So the Jewish people said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Ema Sayavei. When? You say that tomorrow, next week, next year, we're going to serve Hashem at Mount Sinai. When is it going to happen? Amar lahem. So Moshe answers, L'seif chamishim yom. After 50 days from the moment of the Exodus, it'll happen. Says the Chazal, V'hayumaynim kol echad v'echad la'atzmei. The Jewish people started counting the days. But there's a special detail here. It wasn't like they all got together and said, let's count. Everybody went home and counted. And they didn't know the other guy was counting. It was just a personal thing. I made 2 weddings, but I have more than 2 children. So the children not getting married had a count. How many days till the wedding? And they hang it up on the wall, and they would send it on the WhatsApp, and they probably didn't send it to the whole world like I just did. But they were counting down to the wedding. They didn't do that because we told them. Faket, that count, every time I saw it, it made me nervous because I was not doing anything to get my daughter married. There was a miracle we got to the wedding with everything in place, more or less. They were counting because it was valuable. Yidden asked Moshe, okay, so we're going to have a schus tomorrow. When? And Moshe gave them a time frame. So as individuals, privately, everyone counted. Why? Because it was important to them. Right? So the Rebbe continues. Lefi, next underline, this is from the Shibali Aleket, from the Medrash Haggadah. Shekeshen Basru Yisrael Lo Tzeis Mimitzrayim. When the Jews were informed, they're given the Besura, the good news, they're going to go out of Egypt. Nisbasu, they were also informed. Shein Hasidin LaKabbalah Sateidah Seif Chamishim Yem Liyitziyosim. They're going to get the Torah 50 days after their Exodus. Shene'emar, as it says in the Pasuk, Bo'yitziach ha'asa'om hazeh miMitzrayim. When you will take this people out of Egypt. I don't know why the word hazeh is missing. Maybe the word hazeh doesn't belong. Tavdin es halakim al har hazeh. You're going to serve God on this mountain. It does say hazeh. I don't know why the Yisrael Lekha takes it out. Hari hanun shel ta'avdun yisera. It should say ta'avdu, not ta'avdun. Ta'avdu means you will worship. Ta'avdun means you will worship, but there's an extra letter. Says the Medrash Haggadah, the Shibali Aleket, what does that nun mean? Loi malach, to tell you, leketz chamishim yom, that after 50 days from the Exodus, Tavnes alakim, the Jewish people are going to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, shetavdun, which is in parenthesis, shetekablu, which is in bracket. In other words, it's a correction. As HaTeira, the Jewish people will receive the Torah. Now remember this, the Jews are sitting in Egypt. They were not given a timetable when they're going to leave Egypt. They were given a timetable from what's going to happen from the moment they leave. That from the time they leave, they're going to count 50 days. This is before the 10 plagues even started. You're talking at least a year before the Exodus. So the count is really a count towards a count. The countdown of 50 days doesn't start after leaving Mitzrayim. They're a year at least before that occasion. But even then, the Jewish people are anticipating the count. So from the minute Moshe tells them, you're going to go out of Egypt, and then there's going to be 50 days, and then you get the Torah, the Jewish people start waiting from then. From then. They count toward, they're counting down to the countdown, if you will. Says the Rebbe, says the Shibali Aleket, V'Yisrael Me'Rev Chiba, the Jewish people had a great appreciation and love for this whole relationship and what they were going to get. They counted every single day. When they said that one day passed and a second day passed, the same as all of them, that they saw these 50 days at a very long time, because of how much they loved and they valued what was going to happen. And again, I'm repeating myself a second time. They heard this from Moshe Rabbeinu more than a year before they left. And you have to say that they started counting immediately. How can you count a period of time that you don't know precisely how long it's going to be? But it's the anticipation. They were excited. They were infatuated. They were very positively disposed to Hashem and so forth and so on. So the Rebbe now continues. Harim Mefurish, it's clear. Shemeshe Omar Lahem. Moshe Rabbeinu told them, Tavnes Alakim Al Har Hazeh, that you are going to serve Hashem on this mountain when? Kishin is Basru Yisrael Lot says me. Not when they left Egypt. when they were told that they will leave Egypt. In other words, while they were still in Egypt, Moshe says, one day you're going to leave, and after you're going to leave, you're going to get the Torah. And then the Jewish people said, when are we going to get the Torah? And Moshe says, it's 50 days from when you leave. But they're still in Egypt. And from that moment, they waited. Next page, page 11. V'hine, al pizeh, on the basis of the aforementioned, while still in Egypt, probably a year or more prior to the Exodus, that nisbasru Yisrael, sha'asidim lekabel asatera, the Jewish people were given the good news that they will in the future receive the Torah. And from that moment, vare besura zu, this piece of good news, eidera b'Yisrael, chuka gedela, it awakened the Jewish people a great thirst, lekabel asatera, for the receipt, for getting the Torah. Mereiv chibar, their great love. Says the Rebbe, move on this indicates that this thirst for going out of its time and getting the Torah started when? Take it from Yad right away. Well, they're still in Egypt. Turn the page. Page 12 now. So what's the Rebbe teaching us? What's the Rebbe teaching us? We'll see it soon inside, but I'll tell it to you right away. Moshe says, what schus will the Jewish people have? And Hashem says they're going to have a schus in the future. And we're wondering, how does the schus for the future help for right now? And the answer is because the minute you tell them, the future is going to become present. That's the answer. That's why it's a correct answer. Moshe says to the Eibishter, what merit do I have? What merit do you have? And Hashem says, tomorrow. What he's really saying is, you see what happens when you tell this to the Jews. Tomorrow is going to become right now. Because from right now, they're going to be chomping at the bit for the tomorrow. And that's the schus they have. Now! That's the teretz. Moshe says, what schus do you didn't have? And Hashem says, tomorrow, how is tomorrow's schus for today? And the answer is, tell them and you'll see. Because the moment Moshe Rabbeinu tell them, tomorrow became today. Not that they got the Torah today. They started counting the hours. And that's the schus. What merit do the Jewish people have to go out of Mitzrayim? Because they're going out of Mitzrayim to get the Torah, and from the moment you tell them that the end of the Exodus is Matan Torah, they're going to anticipate it, they're going to wait for it, they're going to long for it. That's a current schus, that's a now schus. It's not a tomorrow schus. That's the teretz. And that's what Rashi's saying in his words, that at the end of 3 months, they're going to get the Torah, and they're going to, and that schus is a merit for them right now because they're going to count the moments. Page 12. Now we have an understanding of Rashi and Azal. I want to make it very clear again. My intention in teaching this class is not giving you a techno-Rashi class. This is a techno-Rashi Sicha, which is brilliant. But we're learning it as part of the story. And the story is that Moshe doesn't understand what Yidden are to deserve Yetzias Mitzrayim. And Hashem says, you tell him and see what happens, and you'll see why. And the moment Moshe tells them, Yidden start to count. And Moshe says, oh, okay, I get it. The minute he tells them, they start counting. So Moshe says, this is not about the future, this is about who they are. They're not getting the Torah yet. They really don't know exactly when it's going to be, because the 50 days only begin from the moment of the Exodus. They're still in Mitzrayim. But that anticipation, that excitement, that longing, that's their schus. When you ask, page 12, first column, second line that's underlined, what merit do the Jewish people have now? The answer is, Davar Godel Yeshli Aletzazu. I have a great purpose in this Exodus. They will get the Torah on this mountain, the Seif Gimel Chadoshim, at the end of 3 months. After they leave Egypt. Translates the Lubavitcher Rebbe. That when Hashem informs that they will get the Torah after they leave Egypt, it awakened by the Jewish people hishteikukus, a thirst, vegaguim gedalim, and great longing. Top of the second column, page 12. The Kabbalah Satera, to receiving the Torah, or chukazu, this thirst now. Vada, there's no question, nechsheves l'schuz gedela. The Yisrael is one of the great merits of the Jewish people. Next, underline. You can add even more. Because the Jews looked forward to receiving the Torah. Gam etzem kabbalah satera b'har Sinai nechsheves l'schuz. Months before, days before, weeks before they got the Torah, they're looking forward to it. Says Rebbe, because all this time prior to getting the Torah, they were looking forward to it, the receiving of the Torah was their own doing. Look at the next underline. Hagam shahal kof aleim hakigiyas. Everybody knows that Hashem forced the Jewish people to receive the Torah. Page 12, second column. I only read the underline. Okay, the middle of the second paragraph. Hagam shekof aleim hakigiyas. You see those words? Page 12, second column, second paragraph, the middle. Hashem gave us that by coercion. He took the mountain Sinai, he lifted it up and he dangled it over our heads, and we saw shade and sunlight and shade and sunlight. I'm trying to imagine a mountain dangling over your head. And the Abisha says, okay, your choice. Take the Torah or I'm lowering the mountain. It's going to get very shady very fast. So he said, Nasa v'nishma. That's not exactly free will, huh? Says that, but that was after the fact. For a year and more they looked forward to it. Then for whatever reasons Hashem had to force it on them. But the year and more looking forward to it, that was their own doing. Let's keep reading. When did the getting of the Torah begin? Not when Hashem dangled the mountain, but from the moment of thirst and longing of the Jewish people to get the Torah, while still in Egypt. So the Rebbe therefore argues that Moshe says, what merit do they have? And the Abisha says, tell them, and you'll see now their merit. Tell them. Watch what happens. And therefore, even though when in the end, Hashem had to use coercion to give us the Torah for whatever spiritual reasons, we set that whole thing up with our desire, with our longing. The Abisha said is giving us the Torah and making us His slaves, right? Hashem never told us we're going to be free. Hashem told us we're going to be slaves of His rather than the slaves of the Pharaoh. But like it says in the Mishnah, a slave of Hashem is a free man. A slave of any big entity is a free person. The bigger your boss, the freer you are. And if your boss is the Eibishter, you can't be more free. In that slavery, there is a freedom. And it began the moment they were told. And therefore Moshe asks a question, and gets a very good answer. The answer isn't that they're going to get a merit later. The answer is that they're going to look forward to that merit. And that longing makes the merit immediate, current. Now the Rebbe finishes the Sicha with a bit of Chasidus. On page 13, and then on page 14, the Rebbe adds a bit of Chasidus. And one of the points that he makes, let's read it inside, okay? The underlined, okay? Yetzias Mitzrayim, the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt, who loyrak hayetzia gashmis me'eretz Mitzrayim kipshuta, is not only a physical departure from a physical piece of land. Ela yetzia mikol ha'mitzarim ugvul ruchnim, it's a departure from all kinds of physical, spiritual constraints and limitations. Accordingly, page 13, second column now. V'amites inyan yetzias Mitzrayim, the truth of our exodus is not physically crossing a border from Sukkot to Ramses, that is the Sukkot, but hayetzia mikol ha'mitzarim ugvul, to go out of every kind of limitation, gam de kedusha, even limitations in holiness. Now, how could you go out of all limitations? You're not infinite. How can you go out of all limitations? There's only one way. When your service to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with total bittul. That means, if I'm serving Hashem as me, I am limited, and my service is limited. But if in my service to Hashem I have bittul, I have subservience, I have what we call in our culture Kabbalah to Hashem, my service to Him becomes doing what He wants. He's infinite. Our infinity is doing what He wants. If I'm doing what I want, and I want to be a Jew, that's finite. If I'm doing what I'm doing because He wants, He is infinite, and therefore what I'm doing is infinite as well. So the Rebbe continues. Therefore we now understand another thing, that there's a connection between the merit of the Jewish people from the fact while still in Egypt, they thirsted to receiving the Torah, to the Exodus. There's a relationship between our wanting to receive the Torah and our going out of Egypt. Being Hashem's servant, doesn't mean just to get Torah or mitzvahs. We're going to serve Hashem as servants. We're doing it for Him, not for ourselves. The Jewish people are going to become the servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ula avdazu, and to this servitude, Hishtekaku Yisrael, the Jewish people thirsted, Eid b'Yes and b'Mitzrayim while still in Egypt. There's a deeper Nakudah. The simple idea is we thirsted to get the Torah. The Hasidic Nakudah is we thirsted to be his servants. We thirsted to be under his heel, so to speak. So there's 2 points here. The first point is that telling us that when we go out of Egypt we're going to get the Torah made us want the Torah right away, which makes the Yetzias Mitzrayim have a schus immediately. But we looked forward to doing the Torah as slaves of Hashem, not as Chachomim, but as servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Turn the page, please. Okay? And this explains the relationship between 2 questions. Moshe says, Mi anechi, who am I to take the Jewish people out of Egypt? Page 14, Rashi translates, Man yichoshav v'dabenem hamelachim, who am I to talk to kings? And number 2, v'chiyeites b'nei Yisrael, I'll take the Jewish people out, says Rashi, Va'af im choshav ani, even if I am worthy to speak to kings, mazochol Yisrael, what merit do the Jewish people have? Teshatasa lehem nes, that you should do a miracle for them, v'yitzim Mitzrayim, I'll take them out of Egypt. So Moshe's question is dual, who am I and who are they? And what's the answer? One answer. Bittul. That you're going to serve Hashem as slaves. Sha'amarte, when you said, Mi anechi ki elech al pari, who am I to go to the Pharaoh? The answer is, Leishalachahi, it isn't your power, ki mishali, it's my power, ki imach v'gem, I'm going to be with you. V'shasha'alta, when you asked, Maschus yesh li Yisrael she'itzel Mitzrayim, what merit do the Jewish people have to go out of Egypt? And the answer is, Davagodl yesh el etzazu, there's a great purpose in this Exodus. Shali asidim l'kabel atayda l'harazeh, they're going to get the Torah on this mountain. What do these 2 points share? Hashem says to Moshe, you're not taking them out of Egypt. I'm taking them out of Egypt. You're simply my vassal. You're my pawn. The Jewish people don't have merit yet. They absolutely have a merit already. They're wanting to receive the Torah. Says Rebbe, what's the point? The Shneim, next underline, 14, second paragraph at the bottom on the right. Shneim made a million abit of the When Hashem says to Moshe, you're going to take them out of Egypt, not in your merit, but in my merit, that's bittul of Moshe Rabbeinu. When the Jewish people say they want to serve Hashem as servants, that's the bittul of the Jewish people. So Moshe Rabbeinu gets one answer to 2 questions. Who am I and who are they? The answer is one word, bittul. Your bottle and their bottle. That's the worthiness. That's the merit and the cause they go out of Egypt. Bottom of the first column, page 14. Hashem says, your being the redeemer is not because you're special. Which is why you were chosen to be this emissary of God to redeem the Jewish people. Your ability to take Yidden out of Egypt is not who you are. It's mine. I'm going to be with you. In other words, it's not attributed to Moshe Rabbeinu. It's all of mine. So Moshe says, who am I? And Hashem says, it isn't you, it's me. And your role is to be my servant. And then it continues, second column, page 14. What merit do the Jewish people have to go out of Egypt? And it's the same answer, that they're going to serve me as servants. Hashem says, there's a great purpose for the Exodus. It isn't what makes the Jewish people great, but the Jewish people subservient. Elo. Instead, it's all for me. It's all for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So this last piece I did quick, but the point is, the Rebbe argues that these 2 points actually won. When Moshe says, who am I? And Moshe says, who are the Jewish people? The answer is nothing and nothing. You're nothing, the Jews are nothing, and that's the schus. Now how is nothing a maila? Because when you're nothing, the Eibishter works through you. When the Jewish people are nothing, they're servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Rebbe explained to us 2 points. Number 1, that the Jewish people already have a schus. Not they're going to have a schus. And number 2, that both from Moshe's perspective as well as from the Jewish people's perspective, the issue is bittul. Their subservience to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, their nothingness in the presence of Hashem qualifies him to be the Redeemer and them to be redeemed. Questions or comments?